George, before we start, a quick message from our friends at MUBI. You and I have seen some really great films this month, like Maria, Nickel Boys, Baby Girl, and one of the best ways to keep on top of new releases is with MUBI GO.
You might be familiar with MUBI as a streaming platform, but what MUBI GO gives you is a hand-picked cinema ticket every week on top of unlimited streaming on MUBI.
Each week, MUBI carefully chooses the best film showing in cinema. That film then shows up on the MUBI GO app, showing you where you can see it at cinemas near you.
Yeah, so once you've decided when and where you want to go, you then go to that cinema, show them the QR code in the MUBI GO app, and that's how you reclaim your ticket.
So, for example, if you had had a MUBI GO subscription this month, you would have been able to see Maria, Baby Girl, and Nickel Boys. It's a really economical way to stay on top of the latest releases. And at £18.99 a month, that's about the same price as a regular cinema ticket.
And if you're like us and you're already trying to see as many films as you can, and you already find yourself going to the cinema at least once a week anyway, this is kind of a no-brainer.
Plus, you will get access to MUBI's full streaming library, which is just great. It's a carefully created list of really great films that you can go and check out. Plus, MUBI are offering an introductory 2-week free trial.
To find out more about MUBI GO, head to the link in our episode description. Hello, and welcome to episode 165 of Pulp Kitchen from Park City, Utah at the Sundance Film Festival. We are recording this in your hotel room, James.
Absolutely. We are in Park City, Utah, as you just said, for the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. It's been an amazing week. We are doing presenting work for Dropbox, which has just been fantastic. We wrapped our last day today. If you don't know, Sundance Film Festival has a main street where all of the brands and different shops are located and all of the talent come through to promote their film. And you get, if you're lucky, a few minutes with each of them. We have recorded a bonus episode for you guys, which is going to go out later this week with all of the funny stories, the anecdotes, the interactions that we had, because they were really, really good. We got proper conversations with people like Olivia Colman, Callum Turner, Dave Franco, Joel Edgerton, Benedict Cumberbatch, J-Lo. She rejected us. Sarah Jessica Parker too. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
It's going to be really, really good fun.
We will tell you. We tell all. We will absolutely reveal everything.
What was funny is that
goodness.
we almost didn't make it into America in the most typical American fashion, if I may say. It was like this classic thing of like, you turn up to Immigration America and they start asking you questions and you just immediately feel guilty. And
it's tense.
It was very much in the tea leaves to the fact that I would be stopped, because even in the UK, at a lot of intervals, I was being stopped and searched. Like, I got stopped and searched at the gate. They wanted to check my boots and my jacket and my coat, and they wanted to swipe my bag for explosives. We were already joking that I wouldn't be let into America, but anyway, we land in Salt Lake City Airport, which is just
after a 10-hour flight. 7 hours back now. We're a bit disorientated.
Long flight. It's now like, it should be late at night for us, but it's just like the early afternoon, and you queue up for immigration. You've got your bag, and George is on a separate kiosk, like four down the way. And, I'm being stared down by Officer Holt, who's just looking at me like I am the enemy number one of the state. And he does the classic question: "Sir, are you here for business or for pleasure?" And I said, "Oh, I'm actually here for business." And he says, "What brings you to the United States?" I was like, "Oh, well, I'm here for Sundance Film Festival." And you can't lie, because if you start to lie, well, it's just gonna get worse for you. I go, "Oh, I'm here for the Sundance Film Festival." It's like, "Oh, what do you do here?" It's like, "Oh," and in this capacity, I said, "I'm a presenter. I'm actually doing some presenting for a brand, Dropbox." And he says, "Dropbox, where's their headquarters?" And I was like, "Their headquarters? I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't think they're headquartered here, but like they have a brand space. Of why would they hire you?" And I was like, and he was like, "Are you being paid for this job?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "How much are you being paid?" And then I said the amount we were being paid, which was, it's a fee. And he immediately stops, like stands up and he goes, "Who are you here with?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm here. So I'm a podcaster presenter. I'm here with my business partner here,
by the way,
who's just gone through." George is walking past me.
I'm looking forward to going to the hotel.
And he's like, "Who are you here with?" I was like, "I'm here with my business partner and co-presenter." And he goes, "This guy right here?" And I go, "Yeah." It's right. You come with me. Right. You come with me. Yeah. And we're taken.
He's got me there. He brings us over. Brings me over to the repeats the question and takes both our passports.
And he's like,
okay. Yeah.
Right.
Leads
and there's
us.
like a cute people behind him. He's going, "No, you guys come take a seat
Into the room.
into the room, which was a large room.
And what was funny, we sat in there and we were like, oh, maybe we should just message our agent that we're in here. And then there was this other couple behind us who were like, don't use your phones.
You're not allowed to use your
We've
phone.
been here loads of times before. Don't use your phones. And we're like, okay.
We're like, okay. So then they are glaring at us, and it was Officers Holt and Officers Olsen.
Should we name them? It's fine.
Oh, fuck it. And they just are. The questions with us, they were like, it was again, what are you doing here? How much are you being paid? And why you?
I think it's also important to mention that like there is large gaps of time between each question.
Yes, we were
so
left
we're giving
to
the waiting
sit
game.
and
We're sat in silence for 10 minutes.
wondering like, what is
called
it?
up to the counter individually, like what have we done? And we're trying
What
to
have you
explain.
done?
And it's kind of like
And they also like it's a presenting fee, but it's also fee for social media collaboration, which I'm not sure immigration are that privy to understanding the dynamics of like you're being paid for your social media audience.
And I remember, that thing when they asked like where are they headquartered, I was just like, why would I ever need to know where Dropbox is headquartered?
San Francisco. And we were like, we can give you the email addresses of our contacts at Dropbox. We're like, no.
Yeah, he was really giving the stare, and he just a shake of his head, and then we were asked like, so why you guys?
Why you? What?
like,
Which I know is an important question for American immigration because they like to bring in people of like significant individual talent to come. That's usually like a determining factor for like the
It
O1
always
visa.
like if someone could do that role in US already.
So, for example, Benedict Cumberbatch is allowed to work in America because he is the best person to cast for Doctor Strange, right? That's their argument, is that like his particular set of skills is suited to that role. We couldn't hire an American to do it, right? That's how he's allowed to work. We are not Benedict Cumberbatch, George. And so we're like, why? We're like, why are you? And I was like, oh, like we do a series in the UK where we make fun viral social media moments for celebrities. Meanwhile, they're just looking up at me like, you are.
They
I'm
were
not
really
convinced.
tightening the screws. They were giving the real. It was, it's a performance, but they're really kind of sweating us out, making us feel like every answer which we were giving was a legitimate answer, but making us feel incredibly guilty by saying what we could, and it was tense. So we were in there for probably, I'd say, 20, 25 minutes.
25 minutes. And then they made us do
Fingerprint
all of our
scanning
fingerprints together, individually, eye scanning.
I thought they were going to get the rubber gloves on at one point and tell us to, drop
I thought we were
trowel.
going to get research. I thought we were going to look in my bag, and I had a drone. I thought, it's never a good thing to have when you're trying to just remain under the radar. But
Anyway.
They don't tell you, they don't give you a reason at all as to why you've been stopped. We don't know if it's like, I don't know what, we don't know why yet. And then eventually they tell us, they go, okay, come forward.
And then the performance lifts a little bit.
And they softened, and they just a little corner of their mouth started to smile, and they say, listen, you're on an ESTA and you shouldn't be. You should be on something called
a different visa.
A different visa, essentially, because we're technically being paid to work in America, which we didn't, no one at the brand told us, our agent didn't tell us. You're not technically allowed to go to America if you're being paid to do business. You can go there on business to have meetings and interact, but you can't technically exchange your services for money on this visa. And so they said, look, I think they spoke to us and they realized we were just a bunch of bumbling, useless Brits.
And I think also because we were leaving in 5 days.
And we were leaving in 5 days. We had a return flight booked, which you should always have when you go to America. They said, look, you're on the wrong visa. We're going to let you come into the United States, but no, for next time you should be on a different visa. And they softened a little bit. We were deeply apologetic, so we're very sorry. We didn't know.
We were really upping the British. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Oh my goodness.
I'm just very scared that it would have been such a shame if we were turned around, flown back on our dime, and we miss out on this opportunity, which just would have been so annoying because it was a really long way to go.
Yeah, there was a moment when I was just like, oh, is this going to get really difficult? And obviously it was fine. And like
I was trying to keep positive and
and it was okay. But talking about it makes me feel a little bit nervous.
Meanwhile, our agent, who had just said to us before we went to the kiosk, like, great, see you on the other side, had been sitting there going, where the hell have George and James gone? What on earth could possibly have happened? But we made it into the country. And we've always joked that we're going to see Holt and Olsen chasing us down the street if we committed any crimes.
Anyway, no, we did have a great time though. We have made it.
Yes.
And like we said, if you want to hear our thoughts about,
thank you to
about
Supreme
our whole
Chancellor
experience,
Trump for letting us in.
Thank you to Supreme. If you want to hear our experience of Sundance in general, immigration aside, wait to check out our report on that. But this is a normal episode of Pulp Kitchen as per usual. So we will be giving you a review and we'll be doing some emails. There we are. So
fantastic.
Let's get on with the show. So, James, let's talk about Saturday Night, which is a movie about the first ever recording of the first ever episode of Saturday Night Live in America. This film came out in about the autumn time in the States, but it's only just come out in the UK. You haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I saw it last week, and It is a film that follows the like I said, the first filming of Saturday Night Live. So Saturday Night Live, which I knew going into this film would be an interesting discussion because I think it's one of those films that will play very differently in America to the rest of the world. But most people are aware of what Saturday Night Live is, which as for 50 years now has been this weekly show on Saturdays that is an opportunity and an avenue for budding comics and comic actors and comedians to join a troupe essentially and deliver sketch comedy with musical numbers, celebrity guests, delivered live from New York. It's Saturday night,
and it's been an amazing proving ground for some of the great comedians you've seen
over the past 50 years,
cinema.
Like Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey,
Kristen
Wiig, Jason Sudeikis, Will Forte, Bill Hader, Pete Davidson. It's like the list goes on and on. It's the alumni is incredibly illustrious. But in 1975, in October 1975, that show did not exist, and we have a very young Lorne Michaels. Now, Lorne Michaels is very famous now because he's been running SNL for 50 years as the showrunner. We have a very young Lorne Michaels, played by Gabriel LaBelle, who was the lead in The Fabelmans, which we loved dearly, and we loved him in it. And the film begins 19 minutes before the show has to go on. And it is an incredibly stressful experience. You have a producer played by Cooper Hoffman, who was in Licorice Pizza, ask him, what is the show we're making, by the way? Do you have the finished notes? You have a board of directors, cigar smoking, drinking scotch, breathing down his neck, saying, what's this going to be? Overseen, by the way, by a wonderfully bespectacled Willem Dafoe. And what's this? Johnny Carson wants to know, by the way, what you're going to be doing. We hit the 30 Rock floor because it's filmed at Rockefeller Plaza. And it's like an episode of 30 Rock gone to hell. You have costumes being wheeled out. You have people with fake blood being sprayed. You have people disagreeing about their lines. You've got a young Billy Crystal waiting to say, oh, I've got this sketch idea we're going to include. You have Chevy Chase, who is handsome and tall and being courted for maybe bigger things beyond that. You have Dan Aykroyd, played by Dylan O'Brien, wonderfully mustachioed and talking about his own things. You have George Carlin, a great American stand-up comic, played by Matthew Rhys in these, not coming out of his dressing room because he's just fueled up on drugs. He doesn't want to be there. You have an assistant taking too much drugs. You have John Belushi from the Blues Brothers and Animal House really not signing his contract yet, and it is like a heart attack of 90 minutes of live theatre building up to this first episode. And you kind of cut between the ensemble, and one of the main characters who's playing Lorne Michaels is sort of ex-wife, is played by Rachel Senna, and we spoke to her this week at Sundance.
It was lovely.
And I mentioned in the bonus we did about Sundance that I managed to catch her and just say, by the way, just saw Saturday Night, and I really loved the energy of it. It was so great. She was so grateful.
Dropped her name there, George.
Yeah. Oh, hi. You've got a name there. What do you mean dropped a name there?
Okay.
We were doing it all day. And relevant to the review, thank you.
Yeah.
And she was really grateful. And you have Lamar Morris from New Girl playing the only black cast member who's a bit like, why am I here? I'm a trained actor. Am I here for a little bit of tokenism? You've got John Baptiste playing Billy Preston, who's the first musical guest. It's crazy. And at the center of it, like I said, you have Lorne Michaels trying to hold the whole thing together. Now, going into this film, I was a little bit nervous because there's a couple of things I'm not a fan of. I don't like the valorization and self-congratulation of comedy. I love comedy. I think comedy, sketch comedy, stand-up comedy is a craft. It is an art. But unfortunately, by its nature, is one of those crafts, one of those arts that is not allowed to congratulate itself, because as soon as it does, it becomes so sickening and insincere and defeats the whole point of it. And I think it's something that American comedy has typically done much more.
And it could be a slightly elitist thing of like, oh, you weren't there.
Yeah.
It's this unapproachable thing for younger generations. Like, oh man, when it was back in the day, it was so good. We just used to be able to say what we want, and the time was better, and you don't understand. And I had read a couple of reviews that were a bit middling, who were saying like, oh, this is very self-congratulatory about SNL, and if you don't, and also being a British audience, not in America, would we appreciate it the same way? However, I really enjoyed it. I think it's the thing that works for it is because it is so energetic and so stylish. It's directed by Jason Reitman, I believe, nice.
and co-written by Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan, and delivered with so much energy and style and panache that really it doesn't matter that you don't know the detailed history of Saturday Night Live. It's actually about a ragtag theatre troupe basically trying to come together.
Pioneering a new format as well.
Pioneering a new format and really trying to hold it together. And you could argue it's a workplace film. And I think there are great moments. Oh, you have J.K. Simmons as well playing this almost representation of what TV was and Saturday Night Live represented what TV can be. And he plays this really old-fashioned TV presenter called Milton Berle, who's sexist and naff. And we see a taping of his show the next door, and it's so like naff and cheesy and crap, and it makes you realize just how awful it was. Also, you have the casual sexism and the misogyny of the time. But anyway, I really enjoyed the energy of it, and it creates real nice moments. There's they explore that, like, you know, Chevy Chase had an ego, but like what that was rooted in. And I don't think this isn't a spoiler to say, but like, you know, I think we all know that John Belushi sadly died very young, not many years later, and Gloria Radner as well, one of the actors of the main troupe, died quite young. She was married to Gene Wilder, and they create a nice little moment where those two characters are allowed to exist and have like a moment which is, I thought, very respectful and fun, and it's just got such energy. So it doesn't matter that you're not deeply invested in the history of Saturday Night Live, because it carries you on. We had a great time. I watched it with Anna. She absolutely loved it. I think it's very watchable. It's very good, and just fun.
When I saw the trailer and the premise, I thought that's the story behind the story I really want to know. As you said, we didn't grow up with Saturday Night Live on our television sets, but it's something obviously I later came to on YouTube, basically, and now TikTok. Like, you get cycled through some of the great sketches and the great old ones, and even like the new ones. I'm like, this is really, so like most of these I think are really well done, and I'm like, yeah, like that's something I wasn't exposed to, which really serves me as a British person to tell me something, but give me more context for this show that I've enjoyed. So yeah, I do look forward to checking it out.
And I kind of got to the end and I was like, I appreciate Saturday Night Live. I said it is this really odd, bizarre, incredibly stressful melting pot, crucible, really, actually. Yeah. That when you put things in it, the fiery crucible of Saturday Night Live, it produces some great things.
And just a reminder, go and look back at some of the early like Will Ferrell sketches, and like it's a lot of your favorite comedians. You can cycle back and see some really funny moments of like genuine live television, which must have been so fun to be a part of.
So that's Saturday Night. That's out now in the UK, I believe. Check it out. If you have seen it, let us know your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Guys, just to pick up on what we said earlier about MUBI GO. As we mentioned, it's a hand-picked cinema ticket every week, plus unlimited streaming with MUBI. So I've just signed up and downloaded the app, and I can see that the film of the week at the time of recording is Baby Girl, and it's showing me all the locations near me where it is playing. So knowing that I can just turn up with a QR code on my phone and show it at the box office, super easy.
And with that, you still get all of MUBI's streaming library, which is just great. There's a bunch of films on there that I've missed, like Andrea Arnold's Bird I still haven't caught. I might want to rewatch The Substance for some reason. And I just think if you are someone like us who loves films, you're going to watch multiple films in a month, you take yourself to the cinema quite a lot, this is a no-brainer. It really does make sense to try and catch as many things as you can. And it's just like a full 360-degree film experience. So I would definitely check this out if you haven't already. It's a really great economical way to catch up on films. Plus, MUBI are offering an introductory 2-week free trial. You can find out more in the link in our description.
Back to the show.
George, should we go through some of the emails that we get sent into the show every single week? As always, guys, if you want to send in your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your reviews of the latest films, you can send them in, as you know, say it with me, to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
This first email.
If you want to support us at the VIP tier on Patreon, you can do by heading over to there. You'll also get this podcast ad-free and also our exclusive news show, Double Take.
This email from VIP Harry, friend of the show, says, "Hi guys, it's Harry once again, writing this prelude before even going to the cinema, as tonight is a secret screening. If some viewers don't know, every once in a while, Odeon and Cineworld have a secret screening, allowing audience members to be surprised with a film that typically won't have a wide release. As a cinema worker myself, I do like to know what the film is beforehand, just so I know I'm not wasting my time. I even told fellow Siren M not to bother with a previous secret screening of Kneecap, and how wrong I was.
Like a friend of the show.
This week's film was Presence.
Great to see both of the quiz.
Presence, which is the Steven Soderbergh horror film.
We were meant to go and see that, but me and George were so sick right before Sundance, and the idea of going out just wasn't gonna be. We were like, we just need to get better for Sundance, so we had to turn down that opportunity. But hopefully, in the coming weeks, we will come.
We were really sick.
We were really sick.
I was electric blanket,
It was last week. Basically, last week we pushed through, but once we finished wrapping the episode and all of our other content, which was like 2 hours recording, we crashed hard.
Anyway, Presence, which is a tight 85-minute horror psychological thriller starring Lucy Liu and directed by Steven Soderbergh. Talking to others makes me realise that I probably enjoy this more than the average viewer. If anyone is going to watch it, don't go into it with any anticipation. It is fine, considering that runtime, but it's definitely not a horror. It's technically bare, as it was totally shot on an iPhone with constant oneers per scene. Suspenseful, yes. But thrilling, not really. Would love to hear what you think of it if you ever get round to it. I also wanted to say I concur with last week's emailer Megan. You guys are a breath of fresh air. A fantastic duo to listen to weekly. I've been fortunate enough to personally tell you how important you have been over the past few years, and it's brilliant to hear the kind messages from other sirens. Enjoy Sundance. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
This next email is from Rufus, who writes in about A Complete Unknown. Last week we reviewed A Complete Unknown. Rufus says, hey, fellas. Hope you're both well and continuing to thrive in this bleak midwinter. I recently went to see A Complete Unknown, written in bold and italics. Thank you.
Thank you.
And had some thoughts before watching your review.
Before?
Yes, he's seen the film, but he hadn't watched our review yet.
Gotcha.
Coming in, it's important to know that I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan and thus had high expectations, which made me quite nervous in a weird sort of way. Overall, I thought the movie really delivered some key areas. It was atmospheric, musically hypnotic, and featured a great performance from the cast, especially from the man himself, Timothy Chalamet. I must say I had reservations about him going into it.
How he wrote
That's
it?
really going into it simply because if it's on the prompter, Ron Burgundy will read it. Okay, simply
and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Simply because I felt that he is a great all-round performer, an A-list capable of taking on many vastly different projects per year and doing a good job.
He's really delivering on that, Chalamet. He's rising to the occasion.
Despite all these positives, I did leave the cinema feeling like it was missing something. Namely, because I have such strong feelings for Dylan's work. Okay. I was left unsatisfied that the movie stopped where it did and seemed only to tell half the story. It left out what I consider to be the equally more important, interesting parts of the genre transitions, and not to mention a lot of his equally iconic catalogue. Hurricane, All Along the Watchtower, Knocking on Heaven's Door. I think it's probably unreasonable to expect that it could be done in just one film. Well, on that point, I think that was one of the strengths of the film.
So weirdly, I love the music of Bob Dylan, but I'm not learned on his life story and what was released when and what time. I personally really value how it chose to focus its story on a distinct moment in time and instead tell a story that served people or served audiences more than just telling you about Bob Dylan. It was really about something, and that's why it really stood out to me. I understand if you're now a Bob Dylan fan longing for the next chapter and to tell me more. You must maybe asking so many more questions than I'm asking, but I'm appreciating its restraint and its precision. Yeah,
I think that that's the thing. Like, I actually, as a Dylan fan, I'm not craving the later parts of his story. It's like the whole point of the era that it focuses on is that it builds to a moment that is incredibly important to Bob Dylan as a character, but is also important to America and music culture. So I like that restraint. But I get it. If you're a massive fan, you might be.
You might have been sitting there going, "What about this bit? What about that? You've missed a really important thing."
But then also, the longer you make it, more area you cover, it becomes like Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah. Recently, I also went to see Nosferatu. Side note, I had an extremely embarrassing situation where, while sitting in the movie theatre during the ads, I managed to spill my popcorn on the floor. Then, when trying to pick it up, of what remained of my overpriced quart, I spilled my entire drink over my lap. I had to leave immediately in shame. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
Hide in the bathroom whilst trying to stay there. Whilst trying to dry the damage to my crotch area and return when I was sure the lights were going down and the trailers were at the end.
It doesn't look like you pissed your pants. That one time at a screening, I bought like a grotesquely large bag of Maltesers and I saved it to open it just as like the film's opening credits were starting, and I ripped open the bag and it split and 6,000 Maltesers just went all over the floor and also like all over me. And so throughout the entire duration of the film, I could just feel these Maltesers melting into my jeans. Like I didn't want to move to like make it a problem. Every time I put my foot down, it was like crunch. I feel you, man. I feel you.
Anyway, Rufus just goes on to say that like Nosferatu, he liked Robert Eggers and he'd seen The Witch and he liked The Northman, but he really liked Nosferatu. I still can't quite articulate why I thought the film worked so well, but I was fully engrossed. So put simply, Eggers as a director has now tipped into the category of directors whose work I still seek out. By the way, we talked on Double Take this week about Robert Eggers because he's got not one but two new films in the pipeline. So head over to that. Rufus, thank you very much for your email about that. Always nice to hear those opinions. We also reviewed The Brutalist last week.
Yes.
And Nathan has written in with strong opinions on The Brutalist.
I like it. Let's go.
Hello, James and George and James. Nate writing in from Colorado.
Hey, oh, not far.
Not far. Well, I mean,
I know, but it's like closer than it is in the UK.
Yeah.
It would be a long
That's
drive.
the thing about being in the US is like things that are far and close. The perspective
It might as well be Germany from the UK.
I saw The Brutalist last week and have some very strong opinions. You've been warned. Spoilers ahead. Well, I will try and dance.
Don't worry, the episode will still be spoiler free.
I will dance over what I can. I loved a lot about this movie. Great performances from Adrian Brody, Pierce, and Jones. It has the best score of the year, and it looked incredible, like something made in a different era. This movie is There Will Be Blood meets Foxcatcher meets Koyaanisqatsi. I love what the movie has to say about the sacrifices an artist will make in order to not compromise their vision. I wanted to love The Brutalist, but I can't get past the epilogue and the way the film portrays the American Jewish experience in the post-war period. I'm going to go very carefully over his next paragraph so I don't give away anything spoilers. Laszlo Toth's, the character's experience, is not representative of my Jewish family's experience, some of whom who emigrated in the early 1940s. 1945 to 1980 was an unprecedented period of upward mobility for Jews in America. But the film ignores this and presents America of the time as fundamentally hostile and exploitative to Jews. Toth's experience is, through his relationship with Gordon Van Buren, likened to that of African Americans at a time when much of America was segregated and black people didn't have legally guaranteed voting or civil rights. Israel is presented entirely off-screen as some kind of utopian Jewish Wakanda where Toth and company
We'll put a pin in that.
Something can't say because it gives away the plot. Corbett is talented and this movie has a lot of craft to it, but is he the right person to tell this story? Hell no. It's like if James Cameron made Do the Right Thing. That's a Spike Lee movie. A lot of great movies have politics I don't agree with, and I was willing to give the movie a pass on this front until the epilogue, where something delivered the point about the film to a certain thing. It was a pointless exposition dump in a movie that otherwise had opted for an either show, don't tell, or imply, don't show perspective. Ultimately, I left the theatre feeling like feeling like some white guy filmmaker from California had given me the finger and told me I'm unwelcome in my own country. Something about a non-Jewish person who has this much to say about Jews and our place in America sets off my anti-Semitic radar. Bravo to Corbett on making me feel emotions, even if those emotions are anger and betrayal. Oddly still, I love so much about the rest of The Brutalist that I am very interested in whatever he makes next, so long as he doesn't touch the issue of Jewish identity. Hope the rant doesn't go on too long. All the best, Nate from Colorado.
Okay, you've touched on a lot of really big conversations there. First of all, out the gate, I think Brady Corbett, this isn't a true story. No. It's meant to be, it is fiction. It is meant to present a version of America that is familiar and true to history, but also is trying to make a statement about creation and art itself. I understand your reticence to the fact that you're presenting the immigrant experience through the lens of a Jewish man and also reflecting that back onto the audience. I don't think the film is necessarily trying to portray a definitive version of the Jewish experience in America post-1945 and relationship with Israel. I hear you, I see you with that. I disagree when you say that Israel is presented as some sort of utopia. There is a distinct scene in that film where Israel is also they have this reticence to go and join Israel in this part of 1948. It is a new idea of the state of Israel for Jews in America, and that is wrestled with between the characters. How you feel politically and emotionally about that, I think, is very much there for you to sit with. But ultimately, I personally, again, I'm Jewish, but I'm not going to play that card as like having a different relationship to I think that anyone else would. I didn't personally find it a troubling representation of Jews in America. I do acknowledge the Jewish experience of emigrating to America versus emigrating to Europe is very, very different and worth discussing, and that remains true today. The way in which Jews are received in North America and in Europe remains to stay to be very different, and I acknowledge that, and that's a very interesting conversation for another time, and I think for another film.
Yes.
I don't think this film needs to be burdened with that conversation.
And I will just say,
I'd love to discuss this with you more, actually, because I think it's a really important point, and sort of, I think adds to how much the film tries to cover and achieve.
Thank you, James. Very well said. I'm going to move on now to an email from Alexandra, who was written in about Emilia Perez. Now, when we reviewed, I reviewed Emilia Perez a couple of months ago, and I thought it was not that great, and we moved on. Since then, it's now picked up 13 Oscar nominations and is, between that and The Brutalist, a front contender to win.
And anecdotally, just from people I've spoken to, because I've not seen it, it seems like it's a very slightly confusing pick for different people.
You're hoping to catch up on it at some point.
I'm going to catch it before the Oscar nominations,
But when I reviewed it, one of the things I said was, I kind of wanted to give it a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, that I said, for me as an English speaker, sometimes the power of the musical numbers was lost because the very dexterous dialogue and lyrics were couldn't be delivered properly because we were reading English subtitles. Okay, and I asked if there were any Spanish language speakers. The film's set in Mexico, but any Spanish language speakers who reacted to it differently. And we have an email from Alexandra who says, Emilia Perez from a Spaniard. Hola. I'm a fairly recent listener. I discovered your amazing podcast after Emilia Perez came out because I was desperate to hear what people said about it, and I've been devouring the back catalogue ever since. Thank you. I know it's been a while since you covered it, and I wasn't going to write in, but it's received such widespread critical acclaim and looks so likely it'll win an Oscar. I felt I had to put in my 2 pence. I do think the film tackles some really interesting subjects we don't often see it on screen. And I think it's brilliant that the platforms like Netflix are telling trans stories. I also spoke to a couple of friends in the queer community who said they really identified with the scenes where characters were seeking underground medical attention because they weren't getting support from actual doctors. But I am Spanish. Spanish is my first language, and I have to admit, I found it borderline unwatchable.
Right.
Selena Gomez very clearly does not actually speak Spanish. Is not only using quite bizarre words that nobody has put in that order before, but doesn't seem to understand them. I checked with my Spanish-speaking friends, and honestly, most of them haven't managed to finish the film. I've heard a lot of people say that about the lyrics, that almost the syntactical arrangement of the words make no sense and are very jarring. And it's like that's almost like an AI has written that.
Okay.
It's
weird how that happens, because we've talked about that before with other films.
It's such a shame because it's about a very specific part of Mexico history and very current affairs, but didn't cast any of the very talented Mexican actors in Hollywood. Zoe Saldana is brilliant, but has a very obvious Dominican accent. Carla Sofia Gascon, also great, but is from Madrid, and you can tell. The cast list, writers, director, even filming locations, exclusively not Mexican. Perhaps if more Mexican people had been involved in the making of the film, it could have been avoided. The overly simplistic narrative around narcos and the Desplacidos, Los Desplacidos, or the missing, is the term used for all of... Los Desplacidos is the term for... Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
Los Desplacidos is the missing is the term used for all the people who have disappeared at the hands of drug traffic and associated violence in Mexico. Many costly and painful attempts have been made to recover these people, but most families still don't even have bodies with which to grieve. The notion that it takes so-and-so to do something, it's verging on offensive. I was reluctant to write... I was covering spoilers there. I was reluctant to write in for the first time with such a negative view, but all my Mexican friends agree... even though, except the fact that it hasn't only just been released in Mexico on the 23rd of January, that just seemed rather late.
Yeah.
And I thought this was a great platform to get their opinions heard. I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on this, or if you've heard this view from many other people. Thanks so much for your stunning work, and I hope this isn't too negative. Alejandra, P.S. I watched The Wild Robot on your recommendation, and holy shit, I think I cried 6 times. Thank you.
What a film. My best pick for Oscar animation. Loved it. Thank you for sending in your email, and I'm really glad you did, because that's all stuff that would be lost on us.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm always surprised that this seems to happen, that people are writing in to say that this happens more than it does. I think that's a shame, but yeah, even if that is a factor, the fact that that's the Spanish language speak to separate from the language inconsistencies, that is also something that they're experiencing. You don't speak for everyone, but that you've experienced there.
I find it helpful because, like I said, I was just giving the benefit of a doubt, but it's helpful for someone to say you don't need to, because it is actually not working for us either.
Because I thought maybe as well, like having to read along to a very visually dynamic story might take away from it for you.
It does a bit, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe both.
Guys, that's all the time we have for emails this week. We are pretty stretched time-wise with being here in Sundance, but we'll try and read out as many as we can in the weeks ahead.
Before we go, though.
But before we go...
we have one more thing.
Yes, James... Pulp Kitchen ends with
a
game. It's a thought exercise. This, of course, is very much thank you to VIP Owen.
VIP Owen.
Who has written in the past few weeks with asking us to rank actors and their films in their filmography.
As always, guys, if you wanted to have VIP access to have your email read out on the show, you can head over to our Patreon, where that is one of the tiers that affords you this.
And Owen, thank you for stepping up and providing us with this sort of game again this week. Now, this week, Owen says, hey guys, another week, another film list to challenge. The topics may seem all over the place, but taking them from lists I use on my podcast, we are... Oh, he has his own podcast.
Oh,
yes, fantastic. Having said all that, he wants to make the list harder for us. Okay. This week, I'm going to give you top 5 films, beginning with the letter A.
Here we go.
By the way, films with the before the A word are allowed. So definitely,
I'm happy with that.
Obviously, we're not going to try and think about all films beginning with A. But
no, that would take a while.
I think we're going to just try and rank and reorder the films that Owen has provided.
That's fun.
In 5th place,
yes,
Arrival. And number 4, Anchorman.
Oh, okay.
And number 3, Avatar. Number 2, American History X.
Yeah.
And number 1, American Psycho. Alien and Aliens may feature on many lists, but are just too creepy for me.
Okay.
Catch up next week. Okay.
It's quite hard to discuss Anchorman and Arrival.
Yes.
But I nonetheless appreciate it. So I have seen American History X, but not for a really long time. Saw it quite young. So
I think American History X is a bit more simplistic than people like to think. Like, yes, it does deal with neo-fascism in America, but like, I remember it being quite binary in the sense that like the first half was quite aggressive.
So the two that jumped to the top of the list for me, and I think you agree, is Arrival and American Cycle.
Yes.
Going to sit at the top of that list for me.
Yeah.
Which one is first? I think you're quite close to American Psycho, aren't you?
Yeah, I do love it, but I do think Arrival is really a real
love Arrival. I really adore it. It's beautiful.
I think I'd probably happily put Arrival
and Anchorman.
First.
We both love.
I do think it's a great... Okay, how about this? First place, Arrival. Second place, American Psycho. Third place, Anchorman. And then I think we'd probably put American History X over Avatar. Or maybe actually, no, you know what?
Because I've seen Avatar much more recently, so it has the recency bias. And I can't really comment properly on American History X, but when you just saying that has led me to think I'm happy to put it at the bottom of the list.
Okay, so in 5th place, we're putting American History X. In 4th place, Avatar. In 3rd place, Anchorman. In 2nd place, American Psycho. And in 1st place, Arrival.
Go see Arrival if you haven't seen Arrival. Surprising amount of people haven't seen Arrival.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, don't read anything. Go enjoy that film. Watch it alone and cry.
I really had a really nice moment with Arrival where when we first started this podcast, I had been jaded by Arrival because
yes, of course.
The trailers had ruined it, and then my girlfriend had accidentally sort of spoiled it for me by saying, "Oh yeah, but the trailers didn't show the twist." Obviously, any regular film fan knows you don't do that.
Yeah.
We're still together though, so it's fine. But what I did is as I've talked about on the show before, I put that film in the freezer.
Yes.
And I walked away from it, didn't think about it, and about 8 years later, busted it out, watched it again, loved it.
Yeah.
So I'm
seen
really
it 3 times.
Yeah.
I had that wonderful experience. But completely opposite to you.
Yeah.
All I knew was sci-fi Amy Adams, right? And I was sort of like into sci-fi, and I went to go and see it, and I just knew nothing about it, and I just left the cinema completely beaming and bawling, and completely swept up and surprised.
It's one of your
by the
favourites.
story. It really is, yeah. It's very, very near the top of my list. It's just brilliant.
So anyway,
and it has the Max Richter in the Nature of Daylight score, which is just like an automatic.
I'm hearing it now in my head.
Yeah.
Thank you, Owen, for that. And thank you guys for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen, this more casualized, hotel room-based version of Pulp Kitchen. We're back in the UK next week, where normal service will resume, obviously.
And guys, we have recorded an episode of Double Take where we reacted to the Oscar nominations and gave our opinions of them as they stand at this point in time. So make sure you go and check that out. That is our exclusive weekly news show that is on one of our tiers on Patreon. It's the best way to support us and helps us do what we do. And if you want a little bit more of me and George, you want to hear about our thoughts on the news as it happens, as it's rolling out, please go and check that out. It's a really great show that we absolutely love to do. What else did we talk about? We talked about Robert Eggers' new announcement.
2 films. A Ryan Gosling Star Wars film, maybe, that might be in the offing. I mean...
So make sure you go and have a look there if you want to hear news. And if you subscribe to for this month, you'll get access to every single Double Take ever made. So it just increases in value every single month. New episodes every Wednesday. We're back next week.
Thanks so much, guys. And also, just a shout out to everyone, all of our listeners.
Yes, for enabling us for this opportunity.
Absolutely. We wouldn't be sat here today in Utah talking to you if it wasn't for all your support and listenership over the many years. We really appreciate it. Whether you're a new listener or an old listener, doesn't matter. Thank you for joining us and enabling us to do this.
And we said this in the bonus that it's going to be all about Sundance later this week, but maybe 3-4 times a day, every day we were here, me and George have just looked at each other and gone, this is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
We pinched ourselves, and we've been so appreciative of the fact that we get to do this as a job. It's working out to be more than a dream job. I think it's bigger than the idea of us originally trying to do a podcast when we first started, and it's just it's fantastic. Really. So thank you to everyone who's listened, and let's have a really good year.
Yeah,
films.
Let's have it.
So take care, guys.
See you guys.
Bye bye.